Hello, and welcome to the Say Yes to Holiness podcast. I'm Christina Simmons, your host, and today I have a most wonderful guest with me. In fact, we were joking before we got on about the fact that we must be related somehow because we have all these common interests and activities that we do, and our backgrounds are the same. So it's going to be a fun time. But Greg, thank you so much for coming on to the show. And you know, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself in the sense of like where you are right now physically?
Sure. I am in the wonderful state of Minnesota right now, though I grew up in the glorious state of Iowa. My heart is still near and dear to my hometown, my home state of Iowa. So
Where in Iowa?
Davenport, Iowa.
Okay. I
Yeah.
actually knew some people in Ames.
Oh yeah.
And I had family, my great grandmother and her brother and his family were in Sioux City, Iowa. We would go across Iowa many times as we would go and visit because we were in Florida and we'd come and drive. And so Iowa is near and dear to my heart too. And it's a beautiful place. So
Lots of cornfields, right?
yeah. Well, isn't that where Field of Dreams was? Yeah,
Dyersville, Iowa. Yep,
exactly. Build it and they will come. So,
that's right.
you definitely have done that before. But before we get into that, would you share a little bit about your own faith journey and kind of how you came to be doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, you bet. Um, God is good. I always say he can write great stories with like when we let him. When we give him the chance,
Mm,
he can write just amazing stories. And obviously, like I look back at my life and I think like how in the world did I go from where I started to where I am now? Like I couldn't have
mm,
written it myself. Obviously God can. So yeah, I grew up in Iowa, grew up Catholic, Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, great Catholic family, lots of great Catholic friends, met Jesus in youth group um, in high school and had a profound, conversion experience then, kind of the first real taste of like choosing Jesus in my life. And went off to college and had all the questions come up with, I'm off on my own now. I can do whatever I want to do. And that's scary, but also pretty awesome. It's really cool. And so I had kind of that gut check moment because I went out to college. Long story short, I was surrounded by all kinds of temptations. I was in a fraternity my freshman year. I thought fraternity life was going to be like lots of fun pranks that we pull on each other, lots of football watching, football playing, just a whole lot of fun with a bunch of brothers. And turned out a lot of those brothers, not all of them, but the majority of them had different goals in life than I did. Basically get drunk and get girls is kind of how I summarize it. And I had a faith that said that's not going to make me happy in the end. Like there's more to life than that. And so right away, I kind of had that gut check of, all right, who am I living for? What am I living for? What's true? What's going to guide me throughout the rest of my life? So I took a deep dive in college and really wanted to investigate the faith more, um, partially because I got to the point where like, wait a minute, my parents aren't going to make me go to mass.
mhm.
My friends are off at different colleges. They're not going to hear, they're not here to encourage me in the faith. And so I started to ask those big questions like, well, why am I Catholic? I know I met Jesus in a very emotional way in high school, but I wanted to dig deeper and find more intellectual foundation. So I began asking all the questions. Is there a God? Is Jesus who he said he was? Did Jesus start the Catholic Church?
Mhm.
All those things. And it took me on a little tour to a different college up here in Minnesota. I transferred to the University of St. Thomas and
Mhm.
studied theology. And so I just wanted to study it head on and figure out like what are the answers here. Um, and in that process, I left the church for a while, was essentially an agnostic for about a year. Um, Met Jesus again through the grace of God and through a lot of great professors and finding some great websites with some great talks from brilliant theologians and philosophers. Of course, meeting the saints eventually would bring me all the way back to the church. But I was a Protestant for a little while there. And then I guess the icing on the cake was a pilgrimage to Rome,
Mhm.
and had the chance to go to Mass with JP2, and just witness his holiness through suffering, but also all the saints in Rome. Just you can't
Mhm.
help but recognize the beauty of all that there. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the icing on the Catholic cake. And I came back to the Catholic Church then in college. And then part of that process was all right, now I'm like, I'm all in, like I'm Catholic, and here we go. Lord, what do you want me to do? And
Hmm.
I had met the most amazing woman in my life. And I said, all right, that's the girl. Like, I'm gonna marry her. Like, she's
Hmm.
the one. And as soon as we started to get somewhat serious, of like, all right, let's date, let's discern here. That's when the Lord put on my heart is like, Greg, what about the priesthood?
Hmm.
And I said, I don't want to think about the priesthood. Like, I've met her. Like, I want to go off and marry her. Like, that's not part of the plan here. And he kept coming back to me and just kind of in the most gentlemanly kind of way. What about this? Will you
Right.
consider this? Will you open your heart to this? Um, to the point where I was trying to discern the priesthood and marriage with this woman at the
Mm.
same time. And that's a little difficult when you're
Yep.
with that person. So we broke up and went our separate ways for a while, and essentially put my life in the Lord's hands and say, all right, if you want me to be a priest, like I want to be all in for that. But I need to discern that fully. And so I headed off to seminary, went to Mundelein Seminary for a year. Uh, I had Bishop Barron as a professor of
Mhm.
mine, which is just
Was
awesome.
was gonna
Which
ask
is
that. Yeah.
yeah, a complete gift in itself. I had a whole year of formation. I had tons of extra prayer time. I had great brotherhood. A completely awesome year of formation, and that was a gift in itself. But during that time, it was almost like the Lord just kept on coming back to me and saying, like, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for writing the blank check with your life. And
Hmm.
eventually said, like, that was the test. And like
Hmm.
you proved to me that you're willing to give it all up. Like, give up the number one thing in your life, this girl. And he said, all right, get out of here. I want you to go teach the faith and eventually be a husband and father. And so that was kind of the build up to going back and finding the girl, marrying her, and then teaching middle school religion for the next 14 years and Catholic schools in Texas and Minnesota.
Mm. So did you go back and find the same girl or a different?
I found the same one, and thankfully
Okay.
she had not been swept off her feet yet. Uh,
Hmm.
but we had done the whole like we're not talking to each other, uh,
Hmm.
you know, for who knows how long. And that
Right.
was just we said our goodbyes up here in St. Paul, Minnesota, our last day together essentially before we kind of
Hmm.
started the silent treatment, I guess.
Right.
We prayed a rosary underneath a giant oak tree
Hmm.
and just said, Mary, you've been so good to us from the beginning. Just draw us to your son and just help us to do the Lord's will here. As
Hmm.
incredibly painful as we cried our eyes out through the rosary.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so thankfully, yeah, she had not been swept off her feet yet by the time I was out of seminary and we started
Hmm.
dating and then she got married. So
Yeah.
we now have 4 children. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Oh, what are the ages of your kids?
Mary is 13. She's an eighth grader here
Hmm.
at our Catholic school. And then Piper is in fifth grade. Zoe is in first grade. And then our little guy, Blaise John Paul, is 4.5 and in preschool.
Mm. Wow, Saint Blaise and John Paul. That's a heavy burden there. Beautiful. That's awesome. One of the things that I've often been amazed by, and if you're in the Catholic world, many people misunderstand what the purpose of seminary is, and it really is about discernment, proper discernment. And I've often joked and said that we all need to go off for year, 2 years, however long, in order to really discover who we are and who
Mm,
we are in relation to Him, to God, and then we're really going to be able to then enter into a lifelong commitment to someone else if that's what God has in store for us.
yeah,
But if we don't do that, then what we tend to do is have these kind of, you know, expectations of a person, a creation, a creature to fulfill us in a way that's never going to happen.
yeah,
And so I'm glad that you're able to see the huge gift that was. I would love it if we were able to do that for all young men and women to be
yeah,
able to understand that, have that year. But awesome. So from there, you've spent 14 years, teaching, and actually, I first came across you with your work on the Catholic Religion Teacher website. So how did that come about? Because I've been in a classroom, and I can tell you, going and doing extracurricular activities like running a website or anything, you don't got a lot of time.
No, not at all. Yeah, so that was kind of a fun turn of events. So I was teaching obviously for a number of years, giving my heart and soul to all my students, and I always tell my students, I have two main goals for you guys. Number one, I want you to leave my classroom in eighth grade, graduate as many theologians, and then number two, more importantly, I want you to be big time saints.
Mm,
I said that, that's the goal here. Every single class, like we're trying to become mini theologians or big time theologians would be great too,
mhm,
and big time saints. And so I tailored all my lesson plans to that theme. I always try to weave that in. So the catechetical, the evangelical, bringing
mhm,
those together. Um, and my students would go off to college, or not to college yet, but they go off to high school first. And they'd have their own theology teachers if they're going off to Catholic schools. And sadly, for some of them, they'd come back and visit us, the various teachers they
mhm,
had, and they'd come to my classroom and say, "Mr. Aitchison, we want you to come to our high school and teach theology classes because it's so boring and the lessons are just so uninspiring, and we learned everything already." And that they sang a million praises, and it's all God, to Him be the glory. But they essentially said, like, you need to teach here. And so that was kind of a first inkling of, oh, maybe other teachers could use resources.
mhm,
Um, but then my own students in my own classroom were kind of starting to say, like, this is really, really fun. And, again, will you come to high school with us and keep teaching us?
right.
Say, no, I think the Lord's calling me here right now. But my students said, can you share your lesson plans with our teachers? And I said, I suppose so. Yeah, I guess I can. And so I would connect with some teachers every
Mhm,
now and again. I would send them some lessons, and they'd be excited, and we'd share a little bit. But some students just said, Mr. Aitchison, why don't you make a website so that you can share
mhm,
lesson plans with lots of teachers? I said,
right.
okay, sure. So through their
Mhm,
encouragement, I created CatholicReligionTeacher.com,
mhm,
a very basic website to start. But I just started putting all my lessons out there, and lo and behold, teachers are visiting from all over the place. And I can see the website stats, it's teachers from Cambodia and China and Singapore and England and all across the United States and Canada, of course, as well, any English speaking country. And then I would get emails from these teachers saying, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. My students are loving this, or they're loving this, or they're learning this. And it was really inspiring. And so it just focused, it brought to attention that I'm going to keep on doing this. I'm not making money off this right now. And
right.
I don't even have the bandwidth to like try and sell these things right
Mhm,
now. Um, but it was my students who encouraged me to do it the first time around. And then
mhm,
eventually, as I got more serious about it, and after I left the classroom, I formalized it a little bit more, and
mhm,
made CatholicReligionTeacher.com 2.0,
right.
and began sharing lessons more that way.
Mm. Well, I can attest to that you get some great resources. I've used some of your stuff that you developed from the Chosen series,
Oh
um,
yeah.
and so that's been great. But you shared, kind of why you did it, but what is it that continues to motivate you to keep, putting stuff out there? Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's like it's the hearing from teachers or from their
Mhm.
students from all
Mhm.
over the place who say they're being impacted by these resources I've created.
Mhm.
I tend to be a perfectionist, for better or for ill, and so I know I've put a lot of heart and soul into these lessons, and so it makes me really proud to know that, like, all the time and energy I put into these are being used for good, and they're having an impact. And especially the emails or the notes from teachers that I'll get, which is kind of the most ridiculous things. Like, again, I couldn't imagine some of the things that have happened. It's all God. And
Mhm.
so one of my favorite units that I ever taught was called the Bible Ditty. And in
Mhm.
short, it's a silly, goofy Catholic song to help students memorize all 73 books of the Bible in order.
Mm,
And so I'll give you the quick preview of the New Testament.
okay.
I'll do actions. I'm sitting down here, but there are actions that go with it.
Mhm.
It's more fun when you can stand up and bounce around. And
Kind of like Father Abraham. Yeah.
yeah, kind of like that. And so this is just the New Testament, and you'll kind of understand parts of it, and some of it you're like, what does
Mhm.
that mean? But there's little clues within the song and the
Right.
actions that help students remember it. So the New Testament version goes like this: The New Testament, zing! Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were acting like Romans in the city of Corinth, where they met the GEP. Now the GEP collided with the five T's: Thessy, Timmy, Titus. Philemon was brewing up some games for James, the two Petes, the three Johns, and the dude Jude who had this little revelation.
Mm,
So
that's
that's the New
that's
Testament. And
great.
you'll hear some weird things like the GEP. You're like, what's that? That's Galatians,
It's
Ephesians.
amazing.
So,
Yeah.
and anyway, so that's one of my favorite units of all time.
Mhm.
And that's one that I kind of put back out there. I did like official recording so that I could teach teachers
Mhm.
students if they weren't really comfortable like getting in front of the
Right.
classroom and like teaching all the actions and being
Yeah.
crazy. And so I just kind of released that this past year and
Mhm.
have heard some really fun things from teachers to the point where one of the projects within that unit is for the students to then go evangelize others
Mhm.
and go
And do the
teach
same.
others. Yeah. So
Mm.
um, so part of that is like they'll teach little siblings. So it was always really fun because I would have
Mhm.
some of my eighth grade students teaching their like 5-year-old sisters or brothers.
Right.
They would be like, come and show me in the hallways, like the New Testament. And like, it's so fun. But one of the other projects with that is to film yourself doing the Bible ditty somewhere fun
Mhm.
and creative. And so that, for Minnesotans, there are some students who would go out to a frozen lake in the middle of January,
Right.
film themselves there. Some of them would go into the middle of a Target and they'd be in like an aisle at Target and film
Yeah.
like the workers behind them, like, what's going on? Uh,
Mhm.
some students would be like doing flips on a trampoline while they're doing it. But
Mhm.
I just heard in the last week that there's a teacher who had a student who is traveling to Paris and
Mm.
they had this assignment. And so their goal was to do the Bible ditty on the Eiffel Tower.
Eiffel Tower.
And so I don't have video footage of this yet, but I'm going to reach out to that teacher to see if
If they're
that
able to do
family
it.
would be willing to share that with me because I would just love to see that. It's good. Again, I would never imagine the Bible ditty being performed on the
Yep.
Eiffel Tower. So,
Uh, the little ways that our Lord uses our creative skills, the gifts that He gives us, and how He uses them to then be able to spread His good news. I
yeah.
mean, it's just amazing. That's awesome. So switching gears a little bit, you're a big sports guy and you love doing athletic challenges like CrossFit and Spartan races. I'm an Ironman triathlete and distance runner myself, so I
Wow.
get the kind of the craziness. But I'd love to know how you got started, and what's the continued appeal for you.
Yeah. Um, it started as a kid. I always loved playing sports. Was always playing sports, basketball, football, baseball, for sure, as well as just anything else. Just running around all the time playing sports, and so that's been a love in my life since the time I was little. Um, but like it became big time when I was in high school and I was being kind of a lazy slob at the time. In my faith life, in my school life, I was not being the nicest kid to my parents. And my older brother, Eric, wrote me a letter. He was off in college and he just wrote me a letter. Just a very like straightforward, encouraging letter that only a brother could write to a little brother.
Mhm.
And he said, you know what, Greg, I think you're meant for more. I think you could be better. I think you can step up your game at school. I think you can get healthier. And push yourself. And that was kind of like the first moment of like somebody like really being upfront with me and saying like
Mm,
I'm gonna call you on to more because I know you can be more and do more.
yeah.
And so that little fire in me that eventually turned into a bigger fire. Long story short, I lost 40 pounds between my sophomore and junior year of high school. I realized that fitness could be super, super fun.
Mhm.
Not just sports be fun, but like just
Right.
taking care of yourself, eating healthy and exercising can be just outstanding because by the time I lost 40 pounds and I was in really good shape, I had more energy in my heart than I absolutely knew what to do with. I was just off the walls, excited about life. My faith life grew. I was doing tons better in school because I was disciplined in my physical fitness. I was disciplined at school. I was a better son to my parents.
Mhm.
I was a better friend. Essentially, fitness just um, it carried over to all the other areas of my life.
Mhm.
And so ever since that moment in high school, I saw that connection between the physical and the mental and the emotional and the
Mhm.
spiritual. And so from then on, I've always, on the side of teaching, I've been
Mhm.
doing these things. And fast forward 20 years, and I was going to be turning 40. And whether it was like a midlife crisis kind of thing, or just like the part of me that says like I want to like do something big for my 40th
Mhm.
birthday, I said I want to get in the best shape of my life by the time I turn 40. And so I had like always like I listened to all the podcasts, I'd read all the books, I've done all the things. But I took a gamble and I said, you know what, I'm gonna hire a health coach and
Mhm.
just see if that can maybe like help me get to the next level. And I was kind of thinking like they'll probably just tell me the things I've already learned through all these podcasts and books I've read.
Right.
Um, and it won't be that big of a deal and I'll be wasting my money. But I hired a health coach, and it was completely life changing. There was just something about it besides the wisdom that my coach offered me. It was the check-ins, it was the little
Yeah.
encouragement, it was the mindset shifts, which were huge because I'm the kind of guy who like,
Yeah.
if I'm not seeing improvement by tomorrow, then I'm like, I'm gonna give up. And she was just like, we're playing the long game, change takes time and we're gonna, progress a little baby
Yep.
steps at a time. And so yeah, I worked with her for about 6 months,
Mhm.
and it just revolutionized a lot of things in my life. And again, I got fitter. I all of
Mhm.
a sudden started breaking all kinds of records at the gym and running races and
Mhm.
eating healthier in ways that I didn't realize before, getting
Mhm.
stronger. And again, the carryover just happened automatically. I was getting fitter physically, and I was taking my faith more seriously again. I was being a better husband and father, you name it. Life was going really well. And it was kind of at that point that the Lord started speaking to my heart and saying, hey, you've got a passion for this. And I like to use people's passions to help other
Mhm.
people in their lives.
Yeah.
What about you doing this for others? And
Mhm.
this has been after I left teaching for a bit to stay home with my two little kids,
Mhm.
and help raise them at home. And yeah, it was kind of the right time to think about maybe something else. And
Yeah.
so in the past year and a half, I studied up, got a couple certifications in health coaching, nutrition coaching, and started a business called Happy, Healthy, and Holy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so kind of going down that road a little bit, I checked out all of what you offer there, especially, the mission that you have. I was intrigued, and and it's kind of, more specific. You say it's to help and inspire others to be their best body, mind, and soul.
yeah,
So, what are you hoping might result from being able to work with people, or for people, with happy, healthy, and holy? What do you hope might come from that?
yeah. Um, so when I was preparing to become a health coach, I was kind of going through the mental, practice of like what is that going to look like for me? And
Mhm.
I was checking out all kinds of other health coaches online and kind of getting a feel. And I did a couple phone calls with them and Zoom calls and so on.
Mhm.
And I realized very, very quickly, very early on, that any client that I coach, um, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna not be able to talk about my faith. And so, like,
Yeah.
I just knew right away, like, faith has got to be a part of this because I
Mhm.
don't want to coach folks who just want to like go get tons of muscles and like show off their muscles to everybody and be
Mhm.
really attractive to get the guys or to get the girls or whatever. Like, I don't want to help people live shallow lives. I want them to be in the best shape that they can be,
Mhm.
get healthier so they can live longer, to be with their kids longer, so they can
Right.
have more energy to do the work that God's calling them to do,
Mhm.
um, to feel better on a daily basis, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And so I recognize that right away that, all right, faith has got to be a part of my health coaching. Uh,
Mm.
so I'm not going to bill myself as like a general health coach. Like I want to be a Catholic health coach, just straight
Mhm.
up, and let people know that not only do I want to help them with their physical fitness goals, their nutrition goals, um, but I also want to be there for them for their spiritual goals, for their mental goals, their emotional goals,
Hmm.
basically anything they want to work on. So
Right.
I wouldn't call myself a life coach per se. I'm not a spiritual director. I love Jesus, and I have a lot of experience,
Hmm.
of course, in trying to be a saint and failing a lot along the way. Um, but but yeah, I come at it with a very holistic approach of I want to connect with you on a faith level and help you get closer to Jesus, while at the same time also helping you become the best version of yourself in other areas of your life.
What I just heard you say is the fact that you want to ensure that you are holistically caring for the person in front of you so that their physical and mental and spiritual are all integrated.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Bingo. You said
Yeah.
that a lot better than I just did.
No, it's something of where so often though, I mean, you highlighted the fact of, you realized that you needed to go at it this way.
Mm,
And that is so important because so often, like good Catholics, they'll want to get in shape, they'll want to be doing some things, but then, they check out the local fitness club and you get all sorts of stuff that actually can potentially have negative consequences in the rest of your life. So it's important for us to recognize there is a difference.
mm.
So I'm glad that you do that. So obviously you are a one-on-one health and nutrition coach, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So um, could you describe a little bit about what your coaching kind of like looks like, and and also maybe how can people discern if this is something that's the right path for them at this time?
Yeah, you bet. So I'll answer the second part first.
Sure.
If folks are interested at all about like, you know what, if there's some tug at the heart saying like, you know what, I've always wanted to get in better shape. I've always, I've been trying to lose weight for forever. I want to be around for my grandchildren. I want to, I don't want to get old and sick like maybe my own parents, something like that. If there's that little tug in their hearts, um, and there's that little motivation of like I want to see what I can do if I can improve in these areas, but it's been a struggle to do it on their own. That's where I come in terms of like, all right, let's see if working with a coach would be beneficial for you.
Hmm.
I think the answer is yes, and a
Yep.
million times over. But I do a free discovery call for anybody who's even somewhat interested.
Hmm.
So it's no pressure whatsoever. Kind of like you, I like to hear people's faith stories. I like to hear where people are coming from. And so I do a Zoom call like we're doing right now. And I just say, hey, let's take 20 minutes. Tell me more about your faith background. Tell me more about your health journey. What are the goals you like to work on or you want to work on?
Hmm.
Um, and like not just like what are those baby goals, but like we call them. I call them our North Star goals. Like what are those
Yeah.
big goals, the long distance kind of vision. And sometimes I call them BHAG goals, the big, hairy,
Hmm.
audacious goals. Like really, if you could like snap your fingers and get something in terms of your own health or your spiritual life or whatever, like what would that look like?
Yeah.
And so I like to dig deeper with folks and kind of hear where they're coming from, and then I tell them straight up, like, all right, well, here's what a coach does, or here's what I, as
Hmm.
a coach, would do.
Hmm.
We we connect on a regular basis, and clients choose how often they want to connect, whether that's once a month over a Zoom call or every other week over a Zoom call. Um, and we those are our main connection points where we go through and we talk about, all right, what are some of the struggles you've experienced in the last couple of weeks? Um, what are the goals you want to work on from here? What prayer
Hmm.
requests do you have? I really like to focus on victories, whether they're little victories or big victories. Like, sometimes it's a client who said, like, it was Halloween and I wanted to eat 38 pieces of candy and I ate 23. Like, all right, we're going to call that a victory because at some point you made a decision to say, I'm
Yeah.
not going to go down the rabbit hole of like what I
Yeah.
used to do. And so I like to highlight a lot of those things and then make a plan going forward with some stepping stone goals. So we have the North Star goals are kind of the big picture vision, the long distance goals. And then instead of trying to get from point A to point Z, we go from point A to point B. And we just
Hmm.
kind of build off of those from week to week. So we go from B to C, then C to D, and we kind of keep going from there. Um, I have a app, so a phone app that my clients can connect with me. Um, every day if they want to. So we can text back and forth. They can send video messages,
Hmm.
share pictures. They can take a picture of their meals and say like, "Hey, look what I ate for lunch today. Isn't
Hmm.
this healthy?" And I can say, "Yeah, great job," and encourage them that way. Or like, "Hey, having a really tough day today. Can you throw some prayers my way?" For sure. So they can connect with me 24/7 through the app, and then we do video calls again, kind of how often they would like.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Awesome. So where might people be able to go to learn more about that? So they want to connect with you, where they need to go.
yeah, for sure. Happy, healthy, and holy.org is the website,
Mhm.
and there's a link there for clients to click, or future clients or interested parties to click and say like, I like to do a discovery call.
Mhm.
I just get a little bit of background on them, and then I'll do a call with them. And again, I don't say like, all right, you got to sign up. It's like, this is totally on you, because I don't want somebody feeling pressure to sign up. Because
Right.
if they sign up under any kind of pressure, then it's going to be a failure. They have
Mhm.
to want it. And so I'm
Yeah.
just going to say, I'm here for them. If they choose it and want it, then let's go. I'm going to
Mhm.
walk with you and be your cheerleader and encourager and coach all on the way. But like, I don't do the work in the end. They do
Yeah.
all the work. But
Mhm.
having somebody there behind you and encouraging you is quite helpful.
Oh yeah, I can attest because I am a spiritual director, and that's exactly what it is. Of where it's just like, hey, I'm here. Let's set up an appointment. Let's have the conversations. What's good? A month, 6 weeks. What's your resolutions that you want for the to work on. And it's something of where, but I'm not the one who's gonna make them pray.
Right,
You
exactly.
know,
Yeah.
so, but so for you, that's awesome. Really excited about that because it really is, as you were saying, it really marries that passion, with a need. Talk about need in our world today. But what have you found to be the most challenging for you to be able to keep like all these different efforts, kind of like on track? Because your husband, your dad, those are primary vocations, of course, and then you have your job, so and then you have these activities as well as acting as a coach, and so what have you found to be the most challenging about all that?
Kind of what you said there. All the things,
Mhm.
there's so many things going on. So I think I suffer constantly from wanting to do so many things. Um,
Mm.
like I have Google Docs that are pages long of like, all right, here's what I'm going to do next, and here's what I'm going to do next, and here's the other big project, and I've got two other websites in the works, and I want to do things with that, and just I want to do all the things all the time. And the Lord
Mhm.
says, you are a husband and a father first, and your time is finite, and you still need to sleep and take care of yourself and all those things. And so for instance, I'm looking at my desk. I have it taped on my desk. It's just a reminder of it's building blocks: faith, family, friends, work, fitness, in that order. It's just a kind of
Yep.
a constant reminder for myself, like, wait a minute, if work is getting like to be my main focus, then something's wrong here. And so to kind of
Mhm.
put things back in order. And then I think one of my favorite mantras that I have to tell myself all the time, because I get, again, as you can probably sense, I get really excited about all these things. I want to do all the things.
Mhm.
And then when I don't have the time to do all the things, I get stressed about it. And I'm
Mhm.
like, how am I going to get all these things done? Uh, and then I have to remind myself of this quote. And I heard this in a homily from one of my favorite priests, Father Bob Schwartz. He said, no stress, just do your best and let God take care of the rest. Uh,
Mhm.
and I know many other saints have said things along these lines, maybe not in that way. I'm looking at a quote from Edith Stein on my wall, who at the end of the day, at the end of the night, she said, like, all those things that you didn't get done, give them to the Lord and then go to sleep. And I
Mhm.
think it was John the 23rd who said something like that as well,
Yeah.
about the church and all the church's problems. He said, it's your church, I'm going to bed.
Mhm. Yeah.
that's that's the struggle that I experienced, but that's the thing I have to keep on coming back to is, Lord, like, if you want these things to happen, you're going to make them happen somehow, some way,
Mhm.
someday. But I'm not going to force the issue, because I've learned when I try to force the issue, I just mess it all up and I get stressed out and I'm not my best self. So, um,
Uh, well, it sounds like that wisdom has been helping you on your own journey towards holiness. But it's something of, has there been one idea? You've been sharing a couple of different mantras and your prioritization, but has there been one idea or habit or practice that's really been key for you in being able to live that life that God wants you to be
Yeah.
living?
Um, this is maybe part of my temperament and my own nerdiness.
Mhm.
But this is something I found a lot of success with over the last couple of years, is to have personal trackers for myself.
Mm.
I call them habit trackers. I
Mhm.
also have like a treat tracker that focuses specifically on like, desserts. Like I want to be very intentional when I'm eating dessert. Like I want to enjoy them. But I also know it could be a very slippery slope if I have a, you know, Halloween candy this day. Like, why not candy tomorrow? And my kid's Halloween
Right.
candy sitting right there. I'll have more the next day and more the next day. It's like, wait a minute. Why don't I track and say, like, today, I'm going to eat 5 pieces of candy and love it and enjoy it and thank God for candy. But I'm not going to go overboard because I'm going to write this down. And so
Mhm.
it's just being very intentional with that. And it kind of connects to the quote, if you fail to plan, plan to fail. And
Mhm.
so I have certain trackers like that. And I actually have a couple of free versions on my website on happyhealthyandholy.org.
Mhm.
So anybody who goes to that website or catholicreligionteacher.com, I've got a bunch of freebies for anybody who subscribes to either of those. Uh,
Mhm.
and so people can they can get entrance to the freebie vault or the freebie website, and they'll get all these links to all these things they can get. And so two of those are various trackers that allow folks to set some goals up. And I encourage at the start 3 different goals: one for body, one for mind, one for spirit, and then have a tracker every single day. And so one of the trackers is, I call it the stoplight tracker.
Mhm.
Really simple. I've got it on my fridge, but it's the idea of, if it's a spiritual goal, like maybe your goal is you want to pray every single day for 10 minutes. Lately, it's only been 5 minutes. You want to boost it to 10 minutes.
Mhm.
Awesome. Like, again, a good baby step goal. Write the goal down. So now you're intentional with it.
Mhm.
Put it on your wall, your fridge, wherever you're going to see it the most.
Yeah.
It's set up so it's for a month. So you're going to build the habit over a month. And then it's kind of a daily exam. And at the end of the day, I go to my fridge with a red marker, a yellow marker, and a green marker. And if I got the goal for the day, whether it was that spiritual goal or some other goal that I have, I color that circle in green, and it's kind of the symbolism of like, all right,
Mhm.
I'm going, like I'm on the
Yeah.
path. If
Visual.
if I prayed for 5 minutes that day, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go eat breakfast or something, then I give that a yellow. So
Mhm.
I'm progressing somewhat, but I'm not
Mhm.
going as fast to my goals as I like. And if it's a complete fail, then I put a red up there. And at the end of the month, you see exactly where you're at with all the
Mhm.
reds and all the greens and all the yellows. So by the end of the month, I have like a monthly examine of, all right, how do I do with these goals?
Mhm.
Obviously, I need to work on this one some more next month. So let's
Yeah.
transfer this goal over next month. Or, wow, I'm praying 10 minutes every day like it's nobody's business. What
Mhm.
if I step it up and now I'm going to pray 15 minutes every day, or I'm going to add in a litany of humility every single night, or something like that. So um, I really think trackers are, while they sound a little nerdy and they're a little bit melancholic in terms of temperament, I found a lot of my clients to really appreciate them. Um,
Mhm.
and just, again, it makes everything very intentional. And then it's accountability to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Accountability and intentionality, man. You can't go wrong with either one of those. So I would be remiss if I did not ask about how you got into Harry Potter books and movies. I know that they're some of your favorites. I've been a huge fan and actually have gone to a couple of fan conferences and presented, and
Oh,
so. But how did you get into Harry Potter, and what appealed to you about it?
yeah, great question. Um, I was a Harry Potter denier for a long time, in the sense of like, I
Mhm.
was not going to step into the Harry Potter world because, like, I was the theology nerd, so I was always reading Catholic theology or Catholic philosophy books,
Mhm.
enjoying all that kind of stuff. And my wife was like, you know what? It'd be good for you to read some novels occasionally, and just
Right.
and it's like, yeah, probably. And for Christmas one year, she got me the new illustrated edition of the first Harry
Mm.
Potter,
Okay.
and And so that's what it took. It took me a picture book to get into Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I started with that one. She loved him, and she said, "I think you're going to really enjoy him too." I
Hmm.
said, "Okay." So I started with the first one, and I fell in love with it. And then went through the whole series. I had some coworkers who were super pumped in about them as well, so we were talking about them all the time.
Hmm.
And then went through the series again. And then as my oldest child was getting older, I said, let's read these together. And I
Hmm.
especially got to that point after I did a deep dive on Harry Potter from a Catholic perspective,
Hmm.
because I had heard some folks out there who said
Oh,
like
sure.
Harry Potter's evil and it's going to
Hmm.
get your kids to become witches and wizards and they're going to cast evil spells and become
Hmm.
obsessed and things like that. And I was like, I think that sounds kind of hokey based on my own reading of this, but maybe
Hmm.
there's some validity to it. So let me do a little research. So again, in my typical nerdy sense, I did the deep dive, and I found some just awesome Catholic treasure from Harry Potter. Like to the point where C.S. Lewis has the Chronicles of Narnia, and there's tons of Christian treasure in there.
Right.
Tolkien has the Lord of the Rings, and there's tons
Mhm.
of like deeper hidden treasure there.
Yep.
That's faith treasure. And J.K. Rowling, whether she meant all of it or not, there's so many great Catholic connections that can be brought out from the series.
Mhm.
And actually, I will send this to you after we're done chatting, but I have a 20-page PDF typed up of all the Catholic connections I was able to
Mhm.
pull out of the books based on tons of articles, tons of books and stuff that I read, and my own kind of inklings.
Mhm.
Because I want to show a lot of folks out there like these books can be great bridges to the faith.
Mhm.
And if, especially, I was looking at it from my own students' perspective, of like
Right.
some of them are so into it. And so it's always tell my students, find the Catholic treasure in the things that you're reading,
Mhm.
watching, listening to, and so on. And I started to point out some of these Catholic connections to my students, and they're like, "What? That's the
Yeah.
coolest thing ever!" Like, for instance, the Death Eaters.
Yeah.
They are obviously the bad guys. What's up with their name? They
Mhm.
eat death. That's the strangest name to make up. But the opposite of that would be if the good guys are not Death Eaters, they would be the Life Eaters. Who are the
Mhm.
Life Eaters on this earth? They are Catholic
Yeah.
Christians who literally eat the bread of life every single week at
Mhm.
Mass. So it's like that's just one of a couple hundred that I have in this document.
I can see some formation from Bishop Barron there.
Yes, yeah, and he was kind of the one when he
Yeah.
did his little Lord of the Rings series on YouTube. I
Mhm.
was like, whoa! And then
Yeah.
I thought, I'm going to put my Catholic goggles on. I'm going to do the same thing that he did with Lord of the Rings, but with Harry
Mhm.
Potter.
Yeah.
Um, so
No.
yeah, I'll put that freebie in. I'll put that in both my on both my websites.
Mhm.
So anybody who signs up will get a link to those,
Mhm.
and they can download that. And I've got a little article at the beginning that's kind of like answering the question, "Isn't Harry Potter evil?" and kind of offering some
Right.
rebuttals to that, calming
Yeah.
people down. Long story short, I then began reading the series with my oldest daughter, Mary, and we did about a book each year. We kind of grew with Harry
Mhm.
Potter and his friends. And then now I'm with Piper, and we're on the seventh book going through. And again, it's just been great bonding, but
Mhm.
also like very catechetical and very evangelical in the sense of like bringing these connections to my kids and like seeing them light up about the faith within them too. So
Well, particularly because it creates teachable moments. It
yes.
creates those teachable moments of where we're able to have those conversations about, bullying and exclusion and, and it's just something of where you would be hard pressed to come up with, those situations to be able to talk about them unless your kids unfortunately were going through them, but
Mhm.
yet you're able to, to experience it through Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And you're spot on. So just a quick, what I did was similar, but it was finding the moral life. It was the development of the moral life
Mhm.
throughout all the books. So at the end of each of the books, Harry will have mastered a particular virtue that was necessary in order for him to continue to progress and grow so that he was eventually able to do what he did, in
Yes.
the end. So in that way, it's something of where it's just like, hey, there's the moral, virtuous life that is being led here.
Mm.
And, so in that alone, there's good.
Yes.
So found the Catholic pieces,
Huh?
as Bishop Barron always talks about, where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, till the Protestant Reformation, it was all the umbrella, and then it got blown up, and now we got to go and find the pieces. Uh,
That's a great way of putting it. I like that.
yeah, that's Bishop Barron,
Yeah.
but awesome. Well, I have so enjoyed spending time with you, Greg. And there's so much that you have been doing in order to help others on their own journey. But in a particular way, I'm real excited about Happy, Healthy, and Holy. And for everybody out there, as Greg already said, if this is even on your heart at all, then definitely reach out. But any final thoughts or words for the audience?
Be a saint. You
There
can do
you go. Absolutely. This is all about, the journey to become a saint, to be those living, breathing, wonder working saints,
it.
on this earth and of course in heaven as well. But thank you so much for your time, Greg. It's been great.
Thank you, Christina. I really appreciate it. God bless you and all the awesome work you're doing too.
Thank you so much. And for everybody out there, know my continued prayers for each of you that you continue to do whatever it takes so that together we can tell the master of death, not today. God bless everybody.